Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new hardware review, the first one we've had in several months, and it's a first for me. This is the first phone I've ever owned. No, it's the first one I've ever reviewed, so it's gonna be an adventure, I guarantee it. This is the Gionee P7, or as it's known in Eastern Europe, the Allview P7. It comes in this very nice shiny box, in which you'll find basically nothing, because the people at Allview are goddamn cheapskates and didn't even include a headset. But they did include an extra screen protector because one of them is already glued to the phone, which is nice of them. This phone costs around, 150 euros, and I'm gonna say it outright. If you spend more than 120 euros, this is my personal philosophy, if you spend more than 120 euros on a phone, you need psychiatric evaluation. So I got this thing actually at the low price of around 110 euros because it was on sale in February. And also I really desperately needed a phone that worked. And why did I choose this one? Because it was the goddamn cheapest phone available with 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of storage. Anything less nowadays, it may as well be unusable as, well, anything else than a phone, and hope that you don't ever need to use it for email or something else. So was this a worthy investment, or did I just throw away a whole lot of money that could have been used to buy a new desk? By the way, I have a new desk. You're seeing it, well, you're not seeing it because it's all around me, and you may be wondering why the lighting maybe isn't as good as in the last shows. That's because the chandelier broke. So right now I'm using half the lights I usually do. But that's besides the point. So let's get on to the proper review and see if this thing is actually worth the money. The Gionee P7, or the Allview P7 Pro as they call it around here, it may actually have different names depending on where you're from, because I doubt that Allview is the only country reselling this thing under their own brand. This is a 5-inch phone. It weighs about 160 something grams. It's not too heavy, it's not too light, it's not too thin, not too thick. It's kind of bland. It's middle of the road, you could say. This phone is made primarily out of plastic, but the back panel, this is actually protected by a type of glass. I'm not exactly sure what type. I mean, it says that it uses Asahi glass for the screen, which is supposed to be scratch resistant. So far, because I don't have a cat anymore, I haven't been able to test if it's really scratch resistant or not, but the glass on the back is not really all that resistant to scratches, especially around the LED flash. There have been a lot of scratch marks appearing recently, and I've only been keeping it in my pocket most of the time, so that's kind of disappointing. But the glass protecting the camera, that's actually still perfectly clear and not all scratched. Though now that I think about it, I may have actually scratched the LED by repeatedly trying to clean the glass on the camera. Also, you may notice in one of the close-ups that there is a crack on it, like in the lower right side. I sort of accidentally tested its resilience to being dropped at a distance of about half a meter out of my pocket onto the wooden floor. It didn't shatter completely. No, this crack appeared, and the casing, the back panel, sort of popped off a bit, but not completely. So it's not what you would call crash resistant, but hey, it didn't shatter into a million pieces, so that counts as a win for me. Also, I kinda dropped the old one, but that one was made of complete plastic. Would have probably been okay if I just chunked it into the water and left it there for an eternity, because there wasn't really that much in that phone to actually get broken. It was kinda horrible, but hey, it did its job. Something else you may notice on this phone is that it has a headphone jack, which is something that all those newfangled, high, fancy, expensive phones don't have. Well, this one does, so you're okay. It also has a speaker right here on the back, which is not horrible, it's not great. It does include DTS sound processing, so you can make it sound on your headphones. I mean, you can make it sound like something else. So if you have particularly crappy headphones, you can maybe tweak them a bit to sound a little less horrible, and that sometimes helps. It also has on the back, as you can see here on the lower half, the the microphone, which I'm gonna get to in a moment. You have the USB charger, not USB Type-C, because who has those, honestly, in this price bracket? I'm amazed it has USB at all and not some, I don't know, attachable hamster with a I don't know, battery or something. Also, you'll find the cameras. Well, there's the sensor array, because it also has a light sensor here, not just the camera itself. So it will automatically dim itself if you set it to, you know, check whether the lighting is sufficient for the brightness level it currently uses. And in the back again, you'll find the other camera. Now, let's talk specs. This thing is based on a MediaTek 6737 chipset, which I just read off the monitor. It uses 4 cores, 4 ARM cores, the A53 variety, running at 1.3 GHz. It doesn't always run at that frequency because it's a phone. If it did, it would die instantly. No, it mainly stays at something a lot lower and just peaks to the maximum from time to time. Not always. I've tested this in the mobile version of 3D Mark, and pretty much, apart from the physics test, the CPU was just trying to stay as low as possible. The GPU is a Mali T720 MP2, which is, well, as mobile GPUs go, it does its job, it's okay, you can play 2D games on it to your heart's content. When it comes to 3D, I've tested this using, again, 3D Mark 2011. Oh no, 3D Mark, the mobile version, I believe it was made. I don't know what was made. I tested the Slingshot and the Ice something, the Ice Fortress or Ice Siege or something benchmark. The first one was a slideshow, though to be fair, that is made for phones that have much higher resolutions than this. This only goes all the way up to 720p, that's it. It's not a high-tech super duper quad HD 4K screen. But in the Ice Fortress, or Ice Stronghold test, it worked. It had over 20 frames a second sometimes. And in games, in 3D games, recent 3D games, it doesn't crash instantly. They're viewable, and being mobile games, they're playable too. I mean, they're mobile games, like, come on. They don't require accuracy, they don't require skill, they don't require precision. They're mobile games, they just will look choppy as hell. But for 2D stuff, yeah, for 2D stuff it's actually quite great. But I think I've gotten ahead of myself a bit. I didn't mention first the essentials. For example, this is a dual SIM phone. You can put 2 SIMs in it, you can put just 1 SIM in it, you can put an SD card in it, and 2 SIMs as well, and you're pretty much covered in terms of spectrum, because this thing will pretty much work with any GSM, any 3G, and any 4G network, because it's made to work in the entire world. It also has Wi-Fi, the old kind of Wi-Fi, not AC. That's not here. Also, you're not gonna find features like a gyroscope, so if you want to use this for VR applications, no. Also, it does have that sensor that lets it act as a compass. That will sometimes actually get stuck and sort of hang the phone until you reset it, so I don't use it. And that's honestly the only problem I had with it in terms of software or hardware so far. Well, hardware and software apart from the operating system, to which I'll get to in a moment. First, let's talk about the cameras. The frontal one is a 5 megapixel camera, as the the box says. Well, it can be 5 megapixels. I mean, cameras can have any number of megapixels and still be awful. This one isn't awful, it's actually better than the camera that my old phone had, the main camera my old phone had, so it's okay. I don't really have that many complaints. It shoots clear selfies, if you're a narcissist. Also, it has a back camera with 8 megapixel and autofocus, which actually works. You can even set it to manual focus. The camera app is actually quite useful. It gives you manual control over every setting you want, so you can get pictures that look absolutely bizarre because you set it to a shutter speed of 1 in bright daylight and you just capture the white screen that's filled with whiteness and light. Or you can set it to have the same setting at night and get actually things that look okay. It's the pictures it takes are actually impressive. I mean, consider that my previous phone had a 2.3 megapixel camera, which wasn't 2.3 megapixel, it was a VGA camera being upscaled through a potato, and it looked horrible. My old phone, which was a Sony Ericsson K530, had a much better camera even though it was still 2.3 megapixels. This one is actually better than both of them. It looks nice, it looks fine. The details, not so great if you zoom in, but enlarge it, it looks actually quite nice. And in terms of video, it can actually record at 1080p at something that does sort of somewhat, yeah, kind of really resembles 30 frames a second, which that's honestly astonishing compared to my old phone. And the detail again is quite good. The level of quality on this phone's camera is actually kind of a bit better than on this camera that you're seeing right now. I would actually use this one to record video for this kind of show, but it requires some kind of tripod and I should put a mirror behind it to actually see what I'm doing, and that's a bit more complicated than I can actually do right now. But you've seen bits of film capture with this camera on previous reviews, like the Hori wheel and some other stuff. It looks actually quite nice compared to my old phone, which recorded in 720p at about 5 frames an hour or something like that. Speaking of stuff that was horrible on my old phone, let's talk about the screen. Bam! See? Visible even in these two bright lights. I'd activate the third one, but well, it would screw up completely the green screen, which I'm already fairly sure is not that good looking right now. And keep in mind, this isn't even on full brightness yet. It was at about a fifth of it. Now it's on full brightness and you can still see it. I've actually put a test, well, you can see this now on the background, where I basically put one of these lamps right up to the screen, and it was still sort of kind of visible, even with this crappy camera and under all that light. It's very easily visible in full daylight. Like on the hottest day of the year, with the most sun possible, I could still go outside, try to not die, and still look at his phone and see it clearly. Okay, it wasn't maybe super duper bright, but it was completely visible, and that honestly astonished me, because my old phone, if I held it like this and tilted it around, I would not be able to see with one of my eyes the edge of the screen. Like, depending on where I hold it, one side would not be visible to one of my eyes. It was that kind of TN absolute garbage screen. But this one, this is superb. This is amazing. I had no idea technology advanced so far. It's astonishing. So it's about time we got into the stuff that's not all that super. Let's talk a bit about Satan's bumhole. I mean, let's talk a bit about Android. Now, I'm not saying that Android is a horrible, incredibly, absolutely horrendous operating system. But from my experience, which was using Android 4.2, 4.4, and now Android 6, because this is an Android 6 phone, it does not have an Android 7 upgrade. Android is absolute garbage as an operating system. Now, I'm not saying that iOS is necessarily the best. I have never used iOS. I'm comparing this to Windows 95. I'm comparing this to DOS. I'm comparing this to any operating system ever made, because this is an atrocity to operating system. This is a system that's made to not give you any sort of a control over your phone. It's an absolute joke. Joke! Do you hear me? It's a joke. The fact that I have to root my phone, which I haven't yet because I don't want to root warranty or something, to do basically anything is annoying as crap. This thing comes preloaded with Microsoft Office stuff that thankfully got disabled as soon as I bought it. Like the guy that I bought it from the store, the clerk, took it, disabled every Microsoft thing so it wouldn't update, wouldn't download, because those things will eat up a lot of memory. This phone, like I said, has 16 gigs of storage. 6 of them are used by the OS and I have no idea why. There's nothing in this that warrants 6 gigabytes of RAM. What does it do with... I'm not RAM, storage. What does it do with those 6 gigabytes? What? Exactly what? I have no clue. Windows 95 could run better than this, give you more options, more freedom, and still use less than 1 gig. It would probably use less than 500 megabytes. Hell, I had it installed on an 800 megabyte HDD and still had places to put games in. So no, god damn, Android is horrible. And then you have 10 gigs left over to put all your stuff. You also have the ability to install an SD card, which that's probably where you're gonna put your, I don't know, your music, probably your audiobooks or something, because you can't really put apps on it unless you replace your internal storage with your SD card. I have a 16 gig SD card on this one, so if I were to use it as internal storage, I would have 16 gigs of internal storage, so that would be 6 gigs more than what my phone has. Unfortunately, SD cards are a bit fickle, so on occasion something may get corrupted, and you really don't want something in internal storage to get corrupted, because, you know, sometimes critical stuff gets put there and you don't want that. However, I would want some of my apps to be there, for example my Creature Quest game, because, you know, the saves are gonna be probably somewhere safe. I maybe want to put Heroes 2 in there, but no, I can't. I can't really put any app on the SD card unless I root my phone and partition the SD card to act like a different drive which has partitions, separate partitions for data, for object, and then install link to SD and actually get it to use the SD card properly. I'm a bit upset about this because on my old phone I had 2 gigs of internal storage and 600 gigs for data, and I could not actually put anything on those 2 gigs in terms of apps because everything went to data. When something downloaded, it went into data. When something updated into data, it was horrible. Thankfully this doesn't have that structure, so I have the full 10 gigs to use at my whim. But again, it's only 10 gigs, so a lot of stuff is gonna get dumped into the storage. So currently I have just 2.3 gigs free, meaning I'm gonna have to probably move my music to the SD card, so that will free up another 2 gigs, so that will leave me enough space for some more apps. Thankfully, again, it does have 10 gigs of storage you can use, which is something that you currently do need if you actually want to have a phone that's usable for more than a year. In terms of performance outside of those 3D games where I told you it doesn't really run that well, especially the newer ones. The older ones are okay, the older ones it can run, like you've seen me play that Real Racing 3 thing when I reviewed this thing. It runs games fine, like I can play Heroes 2 on it. Well, I can sort of play Heroes 2 on it. I don't know exactly how in the STL implementation of Heroes 2 I can actually right-click on the enemy army to know how big they are, so I mainly end up dying. Also because the screen's kind of small, it gets hard to actually press on it. The touchscreen component, that actually works. I've had no issues with it, though sometimes the edges may be a bit difficult to press. I mean, I have to press a bit harder to make sure it actually understands what I'm trying to do. But in terms of applications, in terms of, well, apart from the Compass app, in terms of applications, there's no issues with it. It runs well, it runs fine. It won't do something like my Allview tablet did, which was to ruin a draft of the of Volume 2 of Tale of Doom, which I was trying to edit on Google Docs, like through the internet. It basically crashed and deleted all of it. That was a fun experience. This one actually has enough RAM. It has 2 gigs of RAM to actually keep things in memory and not absolutely crash and burn and ruin all your data, all your work, all your effort. So I really appreciate that in terms of performance. It also features such things as gesture controls even when the screen is turned off, which I don't actually use because they tend to activate in my pocket. But they're nice, also they can eat up the battery, so I don't use them. Something I would have liked to see on this phone is the ability for the buttons to actually light up at night. They don't, so they're kind of hard to find at night. Even though they never actually move in a different place, they're kind of hard to find is what I'm saying. As for it being an actual phone, which, you know, if you're gonna buy a phone, you may actually want it to work like a phone. It works. Like, the speaker actually speaks, I can hear it, which is something I couldn't say about my old phone. And the microphone, it sounds okay for a phone. Here's a sample of it. This is a recording test for the Gionee P7 or the Allview P7 mobile phone. It is being recorded at about a distance of 2 centimeters from my face while staring right at the screen and speaking to the lower half of the telephone. It doesn't sound bad, it's kind of okay. You could also install a different kind of microphone if you have a headset that's compatible with this very, very proprietary and very rare headphone jack. But yeah, it sounds okay as a phone. It does its job as a phone. I've not had issues with dropping calls. I've not had issues with the reception. Actually, I have better wireless reception with this than I have with my tablet and my other phone. I can actually use it in different rooms of my house, not just in the place where I have the router, which is it's nice. I should probably edit the review I did of the router now, because it turns out it actually works well. Who knew? The phone was at fault, and the tablet. Well, that's one lesson learned. In terms of battery life, if you use it sporadically, you're gonna get about a day and a half of use. It's a 2300 milliamp battery, which it's a lot compared to my old phone, about double the size, but not a lot compared to many others. If you're gonna use it moderately, you're gonna recharge it every day. If you're gonna use it intensely, like for example to play something like Creature Quest non-stop or 3D games, you're gonna recharge it twice a day. That's a guarantee. But for the most part, I'm okay with how it performs right now in terms of battery capacity and its ability to not die on me when I'm playing something. Also, the thing is that sometimes these phones, well, Android phones in general, do tend to misjudge exactly how much battery they have left, and you'll see them get to 15% and then 14%, and by the time you get to your charger, like in 2 seconds, it'll be at 1%. This has done the same thing to me twice, but it was because I had not actually properly charged it fully or restarted it in about 3-4 weeks a month. It will sometimes do that, so recharge it while it's closed, while it's shut off about once a month. That's actually something that the manufacturer recommends you do to keep it healthy. So, would I recommend this phone, or was I a gigantic sucker to actually use this thing? Well, I'm not sad I bought it. I mean, it's a perfectly functional phone. I mean, you can have a Deus Ex wallpaper on it. Also, this thing, it comes with some launcher that Allview installed on it. I can only customize one of these pictures. Why? Windows 95 had more options than this. Why do I have to install other applications, other launchers? Why do I have to root it to get to do anything? It's annoying as hell. I hate Android. I hate mobile phones so goddamn much. But as a phone, it's okay. If you find this at full price, the full price of 150 euros, don't buy it. Oh God, do not buy it. You're insane. Don't buy it. If you find something with similar configurations, like you know, the 4-core, the MediaTek 6773, what's it called, chipset, that's probably gonna be the only one you'll find at this price range. It does its job. It's not great. It does its job, but if you're gonna find something that has 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of storage at 150 euros, make sure it has a much bigger battery than this one. Otherwise, wait for it to go on sale for 100 bucks, 100 euros, 110 euros, and then you can buy it and still maintain that yes, you are a sane human being and don't need to be carted off to the loony bin, like the people that spend euros on phones. Not saying you're crazy, Corey, but 800 euros, well, $800, it's a lot of money. Well, this will be it for the review of this phone, which hopefully I won't drop because I plan on keeping it around for around 2 years, unless something happens to it tragically involving a wood chipper. Hopefully it won't. But if it does, at least I know it wasn't super expensive and I won't have to sell my kidney to buy a new one. I'm gonna be back soon with some more hardware reviews of some mice that are gonna be sent to us by the people I trust. So, I probably won't get to swear that much in that video. But hey, you know, I'll try. I'll do my best. See you then. Goodbye.